Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina istafa. Before I start the topic, inshallah, I was just talking to a brother in the back, and I see a lot of young people in this community, mashallah, a lot of youth, and my work and my passion is working with young people, working with youth. I've been doing it for over 10 years in my community in Atlanta, Georgia, before I moved to Dallas, Texas, and then now, inshallah, in Dallas, Texas as well. And mashallah, you know, I always, when I go to a masjid Friday night and I see a lot of youth, it reminds me of my youth days as well. Growing up in Georgia, my masjid was very vibrant, and for the young people, the masjid was the hangout spot Friday nights. I'm remembering when I was 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and so on. The masjid on Friday nights is where we would come to have fun, right? And like, you know, nowadays in 2018, a lot of masajids, if you go to a lot of masajids and you say this, the young people will look at you like, are you crazy? Like, this is where I come to get yelled at by the uncles, right? But that's not how it always was, right? And you know, I like to speak very frankly because I don't like to sugarcoat or hide things that our communities might be dealing with. And one of the things that our communities, our Muslim communities, not specifically this one, mashallah, I see this, like I said, there's a lot of young people here. But one thing that our communities deal with is young people running away from Islam and running away from the masjids. And it's not one masjid, it's not two masjids, it's not three masjids. It's a lot of masajids across America, right? Across, let's say, North America. No, Jazakallah khair, I'm fine.
That will keep you relaxed.
Oh, the sisters can't see. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Keep you relaxed.
I mean, I feel my elders are sitting here.
No.
I can't be.
I had asked and
yeah, Jazakumullah khair. Yeah, I was offered a table and a chair by Brother Mahbub, but I kindly declined.
Yes,
I like sitting on the floor. Because I studied in madrasa, you know, so it was, you know, the Deobandi style madrasa. We were just sitting back and forth and rocking back and forth, and we have, you know, and we eat on the dastarkhan and everything, you know. So like, I'm literally, you know, eating dal chawal for lunch. So this is what I'm used to. So sitting on the floor is nothing to me. But jazakumullah khair for the courtesy. And I apologize for the sisters, for you guys not being able to see me. But anyways, as I was saying, we have a problem, right? And we have to see, like, how do we solve this problem in our Muslim communities? How do we solve this problem of young people not wanting to come to the masjid? And why don't they want to come to the masjid? You know, what are the reasons why they don't want to come to the masjid? Have we ever sat with a young person and actually asked them, like, guys, like, what's the problem? Like, you know, I like going to the masjid. It's cool. I go, I pray, I see people, say salam, hang out, eat some kanafe, play some, you know, categories, and, you know, call it a night. You know, that to me, that was beautiful. I really, really enjoyed that. I really loved that, you know. So, I'm not that old. I'm only 28 years old. And so I wonder, I'm just like, so, like, why don't young people want to come to the masjid? So I myself have asked this question to young people. And the number one answer that they give me is that they don't feel welcome. Or they feel weird when they come to the masjid, right? Like, people are looking at them a funny way, you know, looking at them a little bit differently. Because maybe, let's say, you have a young person that came, in Dallas a few weeks ago, I gave khutbah at my masjid, and her father approached me afterwards and said he wanted to talk to me. And I said, cool. So he brought his son, and he brought like three of his sons. So he brought them to me, and so, you know, mashallah, this father is the kind of father that has dialogues with his child. So he was like, okay, so my son did something that I didn't necessarily agree with, but I'm willing to accept that I'm in the wrong, or maybe I'm being too strict or something like that. So I wanted to bring someone that was closer to his age, that, you know, that can maybe reconcile. So I was like, okay, cool. And the issue was his son wanted to pierce his ears and get earrings, right? He wanted to pierce his ears and get earrings.
Good.
And you know, when I say that, like, what is your reaction? That will tell you exactly what, you know what I'm saying, like what you need to know. When I say that, like, Astaghfirullah, brother, what is this? You know, if that is your immediate reaction, that's where the problem is, right? That's what, and this is not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying, like, your immediate reaction. Because let's look at the Prophet ﷺ's reaction when a man came to him, a young man came to him and said, what? Give me permission to commit zina. What did the Prophet ﷺ say? I am the Prophet of God. Allah has told me that you're going to hell. No. He did not even flinch, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahu Akbar. He did not even flinch. I mean, imagine a young man or a young woman coming to the imam of the masjid and saying, yo, bro, yo, dude, like, I just want to go out there and commit zina. Give me permission to do it. And we have to speak about this because a man came to the Prophet ﷺ who is Habibullah and said this to him. So it's not a taboo thing. We need to get away from this. Brother, we can't talk about this, brother. Why? When our children go outside of this masjid, what do you think that they are bombarded with? All right? If they don't get this education from us in a loving way, in a loving manner, what's going to happen? They're going to go get it from their friends in school. I promise you. One way or another, they are hearing about it, they are seeing it, they are dealing with it. I promise you that. It's impossible in this land of the United States for us to expect that, you know, our kids are masoom. They don't do it. No. My kid is perfect, mashallah. You know. He's a hafiz of the Quran. Allahu Akbar. You know, he's not dealing with any of these issues. No. We can't think that. You know. The man came to the Prophet ﷺ and he said, and he knew that this was the Prophet of Allah. He was a Muslim. Allah, he was a Muslim. And he had enough iman in his heart to not go do the act, but to come to the Prophet ﷺ and say, this is what I'm dealing with. And so, like, let's really dissect this situation. Okay? Let's dissect this situation. Because I don't know if we really sat and thought about this situation enough, okay? Number one, someone believed that the Prophet ﷺ was so tolerant and so loving that they could come to him and say something like that to him. He felt comfortable going to the Prophet of Allah ﷺ and actually saying this and actually asking this. How comfortable are our children coming to us about anything, let alone something like that? Let that sink in for a second. Can we honestly say, yeah, you know, my child, my daughter, my son, they're very comfortable coming to me, whatever problems they have. This is our role. I mean, I'm not a father yet. When I say our, I mean the community's role, right? To our children. This is the role that we're supposed to play. Not the authoritarian, you know, whenever you get in trouble, then, you know, you get sent to me type of parent. No. So how comfortable are our children coming to us about these issues? So this father came to me and said, my son decided to go, pierce his ears without my permission. He asked me, he said, my son, he asked me. And that's more than, subhanAllah. When he's told that to me, I was actually very proud of the father, that he made his son comfortable enough to be able to come to him and say, hey dad, this is what I want to do, right? Now, the situation was like, he came to his dad about it. I want to pierce my ears. Why? It's just, my friends, my friends are doing it, and it's something that I've thought about doing, and so on and so forth. The dad said he didn't agree with it. And the dad quoted him hadith of the Prophet ﷺ about, we all know about, the man shouldn't imitate the woman should imitate the man, right? That we all know it. So the dad quoted that to him. And the son's defense was, I'm not trying to imitate any woman, right? In this society, a man having an earring is not imitating women. So the dad said, well, fair enough. I can give you that. So that's why he brought me in. So I stood there, and this young man was an 18-year-old kid, just graduated high school, and I'm talking to the young man, and I'm just like, hey man, what's going on, what's up? And he was like, very respectful young man, mashallah, very respectful. A lot of times we like to equate, someone doing something like piercing their ear, where we see that automatically there's this preconceived notion, oh, this guy's a hoodlum, is a jahil, right? They must be a hoodlum. They must be, well, I don't want my kid around this kid. They're bad kid. But this young man he shook my hand with 2 hands. That is amazing. I don't think kids know what that is in this day and age, right? Shaking an adult's hand with 2 hands, say Assalamu alaikum. So he did that. So I said, okay, man, let's talk, bro. And I was like, so what's the issue? So he laid it out to me. And I said, okay. So I talked to the dad right there in front of him. I said, okay, so number one, I'm just going to tell you right now that, I told the son, I said, you were wrong for doing something that your dad clearly told you he wasn't happy with you doing. That is wrong. And I explained to him why that was wrong, and I explained to him that this is his father, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts parents at a very high status, right? And and I explained to him, I said, your father is taking care of you, your father is feeding you, is clothing you, he's giving you shelter, he's working just to take care of you, right? And he's not an abusive father, he's a loving father, and all these things. And he said, yeah, I know. So I said, you were wrong for doing that. And then I turned to the father, I said, about this earring issue. And I spoke to him in depth about the earring issue. I said, I completely understand where you're coming from, right? I wouldn't go pierce my ears. So I'm with you on that, trust me, all right? But let's look at it from his social context and kind of ease the situation a little bit. He did not grow up the way you grew up. He grew up here in the United States of America. He has friends that grew up here in the United States of America. And in this social context, unfortunately, the people that are out there say that, wearing an earring is not a big deal, right? So I told this to the dad, so he said, yes, I understand, definitely. I just don't think that he should have disobeyed me. And I said, absolutely. And I asked the son, do you agree that you disobeyed your father, you should have done it? He said, yeah. And at the end of that conversation, we were able to come to an understanding. The father said, okay, as long as you don't wear the earrings in front of me, I'm fine. And as long as you don't go wear gold earrings, right? So the son said, I would not do that because I know that when you see me with them, it'll remind you of my disobedience to you. So I won't do that. And I was amazed by this. Now, is that the most practical thing Islamically that you want to see? Maybe not. Maybe not. I'm not saying yes or no. Maybe not. But in this society, that was the best case scenario of that situation. That was the best case scenario of that situation. Because I've seen situations where The father doesn't even have he doesn't even come to ask anyone's opinion. He has beat his son to death at home already. And then now his son said, I hate you, I don't want to live with you, I can't wait to get out of here. College comes, the son is gone. Never see him again. Breaks, no breaks. The son does not come home. Why? Because now there's this, estranged relationship between father and son. And the man just graduated high school, he's going off to college. What reason does he have to come home now? Now you just blocked that communication because of this thing that he did. This one thing that he did that went against what you wanted him to do. Now you've basically you basically closed the door on your own son. And now if he has any issues, anything he might be dealing with, even marriage, probably won't come to you. That is the alternative, right? That is the alternative that we're faced with in this society, in America. We can never, ever close the door on our own children. That is always the wrong option, always, right? If this man could come to the Prophet ﷺ and talk to him, then our own children should be able to come to us and talk to us. And just for the people that don't know the story of the Prophet ﷺ and this young Sahaba, let me just go through it, because there are lessons in this story that are so profound and are so amazing, right? So the man comes to the Prophet ﷺ and he says, I want permission to do this. I want permission to do this, to commit this sin. Give me permission. Okay? So number one lesson is the fact that he felt comfortable enough to be able to come and sit in front of the Prophet of God, who's getting revelation from the seventh heaven, from Jibreel alayhi salam, right? And this is in the time of Medina, right? So their laws are coming down, right? Halal, haram are coming down. Zina is prohibited, right? So he felt comfortable enough, number one, to come to the Prophet ﷺ and ask him this. What did the Prophet ﷺ do? And this is our example, right? What did anyone know? Yes, sir?
Come close.
The Prophet ﷺ told the young man, come closer. Come here, my child. Come here, my son. So automatically now, this is emotional intelligence to like the millionth infinity level, right? Like, someone comes to you and asks you to do something bad, and your first reaction is not, where's my chappal? Where's my slipper? Right? But it's, come close. Come here. Come sit next to me. Automatically now, you've opened that young man or young woman's heart. Wow. You want me to come closer to you? The Prophet of Allah? The Prophet ﷺ had this ability that no other human being ever will have, right? And this was the ability to make every single person that he met, will leave the gathering or leave his company believing that they are the most beloved to him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Amr bin As, radiallahu anhu, he was one of the last of two people to become Muslim. Three people, right? He was one of the last. He accepted Islam in the 9th year of the Hijrah. 9th year, right? So, Amr bin As, radiallahu anhu, he comes and he accepts Islam along with Khalid bin Walid, right? Them two are together. And a few months after he accepts Islam, the Prophet ﷺ sends him on, a few jobs to do. Like, hey, I'm gonna go take care of these things for me. Go take care of these things for me. About 2 to 3 months later, we all know this very famous story where Amr bin As comes to the Prophet ﷺ, and he asked him what?
Who do you love the most?
Who do you love the most? Who is the most beloved person to you? And he didn't ask this question to actually find out. He asked this question thinking that it was him, and he wanted to hear it from the Prophet ﷺ. What we don't know from the story is that this was only 2 months after he accepted Islam. I mean, think about it. There have been Sahaba who've been Muslim since inception, since the first day. 13 years in Mecca and 9 years in Medina. That's a lot of time. And this new convert to Islam, new Muslim to Islam, right, believes in his heart of hearts that the Prophet ﷺ loves him the most, to the point where he comes with confidence. And he asks the Prophet ﷺ, Man ahabba an-nas ilayk? Who is the most beloved of people to you? Allah. And the Prophet ﷺ automatically, right there, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is another example we take from him. He wasn't shy to say this. He said, my wife, Aisha. You know, we think sometimes we gotta be too macho. Like we can't be romantic. We can't show love to our spouses. Don't touch my hand. What are you doing? We're in public. Astaghfirullah. You know, maybe I'm just new to this thing. I just got married like 4 months ago, but nah, man, like I'm holding my wife's hand. Like we walk inside of the masjid holding hands together. And inshallah, that will never stop. I want my children to see me doing that so they'll see an example of how they should treat their spouses. Love, mawaddatan wa rahmah. So the Prophet ﷺ said, Aisha radiallahu anha, Aisha, right away. And Amr ibn As got a little flustered. He was like, oh, no. I mean, I know that. I wasn't talking about, you know, I'm talking about from the men, you know. Obviously, that's your wife. Right? He said, Abuha, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, her father. Not only did he say not him, but he connected it to Aisha radiallahu anha. Abuha. He didn't say Abu Bakr. He said Abuha. That's another level of love. That I'm not even going to mention his name. I'm going to connect it to her. I love her so much that the next one on the list is her father, but I'm going to say her father, Aisha's father. That's another level of love. And that is the kind of love that we need to be looking at, right? Not the bachelor and the bachelorette, but our Prophet ﷺ and how much he loved Khadija radiallahu anha, how much he loved Aisha radiallahu anha. When you hear some of the stories of the Prophet ﷺ with Khadija and the stories of the Prophet ﷺ with Aisha radiallahu anhuma, your heart will melt, you know. Your heart will melt. And, you know, the sisters like to do this thing where every little cute thing, they're like, oh. You will say, oh, for a million years. It's just so beautiful. So beautiful. You know, one such story that I think is probably one of the more famous ones is when, you know, Aisha radiallahu anha would drink from a cup. The Prophet ﷺ wouldn't take the cup and drink from it. What would he do? He would take the cup, turn it to where Aisha radiallahu anha's lips touched, and he would put his lips on her lips from the cup and drink from it. I mean, if that's not romantic, I don't know what is. You know, I tried doing that with my wife. I couldn't find the lip thingy. So I was like, khalas, it was the thought that counted. I don't know what to do. Like, the cup was dark. I tried, you know. But that was one of those things that I always said that when I get married, I'm going to try that, you know. I'll still continue trying it, but maybe I'll get like a glass cup. Maybe that'll be more visible, right? But this was the Prophet ﷺ, right? This who he was. So going back to the story of the young man, the first thing he told him, he said, come close. He made him feel comfortable and he told him, come here. And he embraced him with his love. And he told him, he said, my child. My child. He didn't say, no, I don't give you permission. No, you cannot do this. This is another part of emotional intelligence. Basically, you need to do this thing where you come to the level of the person that you're speaking with and speak in a way that they would understand what you're saying, right? This is emotional intelligence. If I'm talking to someone that is, let's say, someone comes in here and they are an engineer, right? And they ask me a question. And I know that their brain thinks in the, in the way that engineers, let's say mechanical engineers, that way. That's the way that he thinks. So if I want to answer the question to the way that he would understand it perfectly, what I should try to do is get an example, get an engineering example and explain it to him in that way, right? It's like, oh, let me give you an example in the engineering, and then say this and that, and he'll be like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Because why? Engineering is his language, or her language, right? So the Prophet ﷺ spoke to this young man and told this young man, come close, let me talk to you real quick. And he said, what would you think, if someone kind of wanted to do these things with your sister? Or, wanted to do something like that with your aunt, or your mom, or, the women that are in your family. Would you allow it? Would you be happy about it? The young man automatically in his head thought about that. And automatically in his head thought about the fact that, whatever woman that he wanted to commit this act with is someone's sister, maybe someone's aunt, maybe someone's daughter, so on and so forth. And automatically he said, I would not like that. I would not like that, O Prophet of Allah. And the Prophet ﷺ said, in that way, someone else is someone else's sister. That's someone else's aunt. That's someone else's daughter. And the man, right then and there, the young Sahabi, right then and there, was disgusted by this act. Because he was able to think about that because of the example that the Prophet ﷺ gave us. Not because the Prophet ﷺ said, come here, man, and then give him a little hit on the head. What's wrong with you? Get out of here. You can't do it. Astaghfirullah. Go repent. Pray 2 rakahs, man. Go make wudu, pray 2 rakahs. Go hustle, all the good stuff. Go. No. He just had to give him an example that the young man was able to relate to. And that was enough. That was the last that young man ever had any desire to do such a despicable thing. This was the Prophet ﷺ. This is emotional intelligence. And this, my dear brothers and sisters, is the exact thing that we need to implement in our households and in our communities. And I promise you that if we do this, because I've seen it work. I counsel young people, mostly teenagers from high school age, right? But I counsel young kids, and they'll come to me. I've heard it all. I've heard it all. It's like a young 16-year-old girl came to me, this is back in Atlanta, and basically just told me that, she smoked weed just last week for the first time. And, she'd been wanting to do it for a while, but she's been, hesitating, but she didn't. 16 years of age, right? 16 years, she's like, my father would kill me, slaughter me, and ship me back to Libya and bury me in the ground. So, obviously, my mom, she'll just be crying and crying and crying, and I wanted to get this thing out, but I didn't know who to talk to. But I came to you. And I said, cool, I'm listening to her talking, I'm just nodding. I'm just nodding because I'm thinking about the Prophet ﷺ when this young man came to him, right? Every time I talk to young people, I always think about the story and I just sit there and so what's up? What do you want to tell me? And I tell myself in my head, no matter what this person tells me, one thing I cannot do in my heart is judge them, and definitely my face cannot change at all in any way, shape, or form, right? So I already come into that meeting telling myself that, because if not, we're all human beings. Someone tells you you're doing something wrong, and you're like, oof, right? It's natural. It's natural, right? We correct it afterwards, but first you think something. When you see someone outside doing something wrong, don't you shake your head? It's a natural thing, right? So if you go into it saying, you know what? Whatever they tell you, make sure you don't, imagine the worst thing and just get it over with right now. And then go into that meeting. But this young woman felt comfortable coming to me because she knew that I wouldn't judge her, right? She knew that I wouldn't judge her. And in this community that I came from, I was a full-time head teacher. I was a Quran teacher. So it's not like I was some, whatever. She connected me to the masjid and to the Quran, but yet she still felt comfortable, right? And this is what we need. And she told me this. And I said, okay, cool. So what do you want to do now? And she was like, well, I don't know. I said, let me tell you something. She said, what? I said, the fact that you came and told me this means that you felt bad about it. That's it. I said, you're on the right path. I said, trust me, you felt bad. Otherwise, why would you come? If you didn't care, why would you try to tell someone? You came to talk to me about it because you felt bad. I said, thumbs up to you for that. Let's just start there. And she said, yeah, you're right. I really do feel bad about it. I thought that I wanted to do it, but I really, and she just starts telling me everything. She just starts, and I'm just sitting there listening. At the end, she was just like, whew, thanks. And I said, what? What do you mean, thanks? What did I do? She said, for listening. I said, cool. Do you need me to do anything? She's like, no, I'm good. I said, exactly. They just need someone to talk to who's going to listen to them and not judge them and realize that they are human beings and they can make mistakes, but they will come back, inshallah. Because we have taught them well, right? Your parents teach you well, so you will come back. The fitrah is something that's amazing. It doesn't leave you, right? There's always a small spark. So unless you're just swimming in just like jahil and sins and everything for like 50, 60, 70, 80 years, you're going to feel bad when you do something wrong. Leave that door open for your children to come to you and tell you, Dad, I just drank alcohol. Leave that door open for your daughter to come to you and say, Dad, Mom, I just hugged this boy. You have to leave that door. I mean, it sounds crazy. And I might sound a little radical. I'm not, all right? I just grew up in the United States of America, and I know what young people go through because I went to middle school, high school, college, university here. I know what young people go through. And it only gets worse as time goes by. I mean, I thought my school was bad. We were not allowed to have cell phones out. We had flip phones, right, back then. And I couldn't have a phone until I was in, 11th grade. But I somehow got my hands on a phone. It was a flip phone, but I still had a phone. But we couldn't even have it at school. If someone sees us with a flip phone, we get it confiscated. Nowadays, oh my goodness. I'm a teacher, so I can oh my goodness. I mean, my young cousin, and I always, kind of debate with her mom about this. I said, you didn't give us phones till we were 17, and she's 9 years old, and she has a phone, not only a phone, but the Galaxy 10 or whatever it's called, and I'm just like, what? And I got mad. It wasn't even about justice. I was just mad because I didn't have it, right? So I was like, man, these kids have phones at this young age, right? And they get to hold their phones in class. Apparently, they don't take they're able to just have their phones in school. They don't have to put it up. I mean, being a teacher is difficult, right? You have to deal with a kid with a smartphone in their hands, with Snapchat and Instagram and Twitters and whatever else is there that kids are into nowadays, and then they're bombarded with so much these silly challenges that young people put online now. That it's become so bad that people are. I heard the other day something that shocked me to the core. That there was this challenge a few years ago, apparently 2015 or something. This person made this app where it details step-by-step things to do to make you, by the end of it, become suicidal. And young minds, were addicted to this thing because it was a challenge, right? Everything is a challenge now, right? It was a challenge. People actually died doing it. Wallahi, I was in shock. I didn't know what to think. I was like, no way. No way. Because if I tell you, 10 years ago, if I told you this story, you would say, oh, that's a story for the end of time. Right? Oh, no, this is something when the Dajjal comes, it'll happen. It's like, go kill yourself and then they'll just go kill themselves. That sounds Dajjalic. That sounds like, fire and brimstone. That sounds like, oceans on fire. But no, 2015, 2016. Challenges where kids are taking, detergent soap and eating it as a challenge. I mean, these are the things that our young people are, faced with nowadays. These silly, crazy things, right? And if they're going through something at school where, let's say, someone is, making fun of them for one reason or another, for being Muslim, for not wanting to do these things, right? Because you get the flack for a young person. I went to high school and middle school again. You get flack. Oh, dude, you don't have a girlfriend. You lame, bro. You a lame. You don't date. You a lame. Right? You don't come to these parties. You a lame. Imagine young people, our young children, hearing that over and over and over again, that they're lame, that they're not cool, that they won't basically amount to anything because, socially they're just like not there. Over and over and over and over again. And then they come home, and the reason why they're being called that is this Islam thing, and we take this Islam thing and beat it over their head. So at school they're getting it from their peers, and at home what happens? Hey, what are you? Go pray. What are you doing? Stop doing this. Everything. Rules. No explanation as to why. What's going, why do we do this? Right? This is what our young kids are facing. This is what young people are facing. And I will tell you, and I don't want to go on for too long, so I'm gonna tell you one story, and then I'm gonna end on it. And if you guys have any questions, comments, suggestions, criticisms, anything, I like having a discussion. And so I'll just end on this. In Carrollton, where the masjid that I work at in Dallas, one of the Friday nights I was having a halaqah there, and this father came to me, and he said, Brother Hassan, I want to ask you a question. I said, yeah. He said, you know what, I see that you're young, and you're good with the young people, and you're at the masjid and stuff, right? And you teach Quran and all this, and yeah. And then he's like, okay, so how can I get my son and daughter to do that? So I said, okay, let me stop you right there, okay? I said, let's say you go to your son and your daughter and you say, read Quran or pray. If they ask you why, can you give them an answer that will satisfy them? His eyes opened up, he's like, no. So I was like, yeah, you can't, right? He said, no, I really can't. So I said, here's the problem. I said, we focus so much on do this and do that, don't do this, don't do that, that we never took the time to tell our young people, our children, why it is that we're doing these things at all, right? I said to him, before the Prophet ﷺ in the Quran, because if you read the Quran and you read it, let's say chronologically, when surahs and ayats were revealed, in all of the surahs that were revealed, all of the ayats that were revealed in the Makki part of the seerah, what will you find? You'll find that none of them were about rules. None of them were about halal and haram. It was only in the time, 13 years after Islam, when they migrated, when they established themselves as Muslims, as a community, now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started setting the rules. This is 13 years after Islam is revealed to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay? No rules. Here and there, pray, no specific prayer time. You understand what I'm saying? All of the ayats that were revealed were ayats talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They were ayat that will connect the heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There were ayats about Jannah and how beautiful it was and what you'll get there. And there were ayats about hellfire and how you want to stay away from it and how miserable it is, right? These things, right? Like, for example, we all know the story of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu when he was accepting Islam. What was the surah that when he came to his sister's house that, they were reviewing? It was the Surah Taha, right? And the Surah Taha, if you read the surah, that first 15 lines, first 15 ayah, man, wallahi, it'll make you cry. Taha. ما أنزلنا عليك القرآن لتشقى إلا تذكرة لمن يخشى تنزيلا ممن خلق الأرض والسماوات العلى الرحمن على العرش استوى له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض وما بينهما وما تحت الثرى وإن تجهر بالقول فإنه يعلم السر وأخفى الله لا إله إلا هو له الأسماء الحسنى. Allah. All of these ayats are talking about the majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they're so beautifully put. Just reading that surah, wallahi, it'll put a smile on your face. Just the way it flows is enough to put a smile on your face. Let alone, the meaning, the in-depth meaning of it. Those ayat, please, I urge you guys, today when you go home, just go read the first 15 ayahs of Surah Taha, and you'll know what I'm talking about. And Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu accepted Islam in the 5th or 6th year of Nubuwwah, right? So this is what he read. And when he read this, he said, whoever revealed this deserves to be worshipped. These were the words of Umar bin Khattab. It wasn't about rules. It wasn't about, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't. Imagine if Umar bin Khattab came and they gave him that and he was like reading just a set of rules. Come on. Don't come into it. Don't drink alcohol. Don't do it. He was like, what is this? This is just like an instruction manual on what to do and what not to do. But as soon as he read that, his heart was able to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because, Allahu la ilaha illahu, lahu al-asma'ul husna. Just that ayah itself. Allah, there is no God but He, and to Him belongs the most beautiful of names. And then he talks about the story of Musa. وَهَلْ أَتَاكَ حَدِيثُ مُوسَى إِذْ رَأَى نَارًا. And they knew about the stories of the prophets and stuff. Right? And he goes and he says, إِنَّنِي, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِنَّنِي, indeed, most certainly, I Allah, I am Allah. La ilaha illa ana. There is no God but me. فَاعْبُدْنِي. So worship me. وَأَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ لِذِكْرِ. And establish the prayer for my remembrance. If you read this as someone that's first coming to it in the Arabic that it was so eloquently revealed in, you have no choice. These are the ayahs that were revealed, my dear brothers and sisters. But when we are teaching Islam to our children, what do we teach them first?
Salah.
Salah. Hey, kid, go pray. Salah is, no one can tell you the importance of Salah, obviously, right? On the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if your, the Prophet says, if your Salah is in order, then everything that comes after is in order. But Tawheed should be first. How do we expect that our children automatically just have Tawheed in their hearts? At 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, what? Who put it, where? How? Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, قَالَتِ الْأَعْرَابُ آمَنَّا. The Arabs say, the people that just accepted Islam, آمَنَّا, we believe. قُلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا. Tell them, no, you haven't believed yet. وَلَكِنْ قُولُوا, but say, أَسْلَمْنَا. We have submitted. Submission and belief are two different things. Submission and belief are two different things. So, what should we teach our children first? Who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. So go to the Quran, pick out these ayats, Sit with your children and talk to them about it. Ask them, what questions do you have? You want to get to know your Lord. Ma'rifatullah. You cannot worship someone you don't know. Why would you want to if you don't know him? Right? We're trying to get to the point where أَن تَعْبُدَ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ. We're trying to get to the point where we're worshiping Allah as if we're seeing him. But how do you worship someone that you don't know? We have to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our children have to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before we tell them, you have to do this, you can't do that, you have to do... I mean, for them then, of course Islam is going to be like, this thing just restricts me in everything. Because what are they seeing out there? That their friends are doing everything that they want, and they can't do any of it. But if they have iman in their hearts, if their hearts are already attached to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will look out there and actually feel sorry for their friends instead of envying them and wanting to emulate them. The difference is only ma'rifatullah, connecting the heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And don't think, a child is too young to know Allah. That is our mistake. The child is pure. They are the perfect vessel to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to have iman of Allah, more so than most of us, adults, right? A child, you talk to them about God and Allah, and to them it just makes sense. It's like, yeah, absolutely. One God, worship him, this, that, blah, blah, blah. Like, it makes perfect sense. But we can't get there if we're just spouting out rules without, number one, explaining it, and without beforehand getting their hearts connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to stop here, inshallah, and if you guys have anything to add, I welcome it. I really welcome, I want everyone, and I will give the mic to anyone, and I'll sit there. If you guys have anything to add, if I said anything that was wrong, that was from me and shaitan, and if I said anything that was of benefit and good, that's solely from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. بارك الله لي ولكم في القرآن الحكيم ونفعني وإياكم بما فيه من الآيات والذكر الحكيم. بارك الله لي وإياكم. Yes.
Question, since you have so much experience dealing with the kids and youngsters.
Yes.
What do you think is the best grade till the best grade they can go to Islamic school, feasible age? We cannot be sending kids till high school, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. But at one point of time, they have to get in the swimming pool and learn how to swim. They cannot be in Islamic school. So what is the best age with your exposure or experience you think that kids has to go to?
Okay, so here,
Repeat that question for the sister.
So the question the brother is asking, like, what is basically to what age can you keep your child in Islamic school until you're just like ready to say, okay, now you're ready to, get into society and go to high school with everyone else that you're probably going to be going to universities with, right? Because you're going to be interacting with them, so might as well put you in there so you can basically learn to swim, right? I've done my job. I've tried to teach you what I should teach you. Now, get out there and swim. I can't swim for you. Is that okay? Okay. So, alhamdulillah, you guys have an Islamic school here. So I'm scared to answer that question. No, I'm kidding. No, I'll be honest. My perfect Islamic society is where my child never has to go to public school. Why not? Why can't we create such an Islamic school to where our kids? Because here's the thing: like if we're saying that let me take my kid out of Islamic school and put him into public school, that's kind of telling us that the kids in the Islamic school are not normal. It's like, oh no, they need to interact with other people to be socially, or else they're going to be socially inept. That's basically what we're saying without saying it, right? We're just like, I had friends in Islamic school, right? My friends in Islamic school were no different than my friends outside of Islamic school, in regular high school, so on and so forth, right? So if your question is basically geared towards, okay, I've taught you how to swim, now go out there and basically learn how to deal with society, you can deal with society in, being in Islamic school, because that is society. Why is that not society? In my opinion. Allahu A'lam. That's in my opinion. I don't know anything. But I'm just answering your question from my viewpoint. I would have my child go to Islam if it's a good Islamic school. If our ACT scores are great, mashallah. Shout out to Peace Academy. Okay. If our ACT scores are great, and I'm just like, see, normal people, just why? Why shouldn't I keep my kids in Islamic school? Now, if the Islamic school is not all that great, I don't think your kids should be in there. Honestly, at all. Because I've seen people go through Islamic school and come out worse. And, I mean, just grades-wise, behavior-wise, everything, right? So, it's not necessarily, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like, oh, Islamic school, you're going to be great. No. It has to do with how good that Islamic school is, what that Islamic school is teaching, what social activities do those Islamic schools have. Like, if you have Peace Academy, let's say you have Peace Academy and you have field trips where you're able to interact with other schools, right, who are not Islamic schools. Your children are now interacting with the greater society, right? Because when you think about private schools, right, they have K all the way to 12. Parents never say, I'm going to take my kid out of this private school and put him into public school. Because to them, it's like, that's the word. No, like, I have gold, why would I give him dirt, right? Allah, we have the principal here if he wants to. We have about 5 minutes left, but if you want to comment, please, I would like to hear what you have to say. Because you're a principal, so. Of an Islamic school.
He never asked me that question. I can answer mine. I can say.
Please.
We finish in 5 minutes.
I guess people are sometimes scared to ask the principal of Islamic school, thinking that there's going to be a biased answer, right? But you just have to ask, and then you can decide with your judgment. So here's the deal. The bottom line, the number one factor, Allah says, قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا. Save yourself and your children from the hellfire. You save yourself and your children from the hellfire. Now everybody is now charged with this really important responsibility. I mean, it's Allah is saying that to you. Like, it's so serious. Save yourselves and your children from the hellfire. How you do that? That's another question. The first most important thing, Brother Hassan talked a lot about it today, comes with this relationship at home. It doesn't matter whether you take your kids to Sunday school, to the Islamic school, to the youth programs in the mosque, you have an imam, you don't have an imam, looking at all these external sources to try to raise your kids, when the real bottom line is what you're doing at home. Number one task is creating an Islamic environment in your home and becoming close to your children, winning their hearts, spending time with them, not just spending money, spending time. Whoever said, this is the funniest thing I hear people talk about, what do you do with your free time? That's the biggest joke I've ever heard. Whoever said time was free, that's the most precious thing that every single one of us has. The most precious thing we have, the most precious thing that our children need is our time. You won't need to depend on external sources for your Islamic upbringing of your children, ultimately, if you're doing it right at home. But what are these external sources? These are all tools to help you, to support what you're doing. So the Quran school, the Islamic school, the weekend school, these are all tools to support what you're doing. Now, there are some resources you might have at home. Maybe you or your wife have studied some Islam. Maybe you or your wife have some Islamic upbringing or background, some Quranic upbringing or background. Great. But maybe not everyone has been afforded that opportunity. So now you need to bridge with community resources to get those supports, the support for bringing up your kids. So now you need to decide, based on your children and their personalities, which of these resources to bridge with to raise your children. If the Islamic school, or let's go even more specific, if the teacher that is teaching your Islamic school and the kids who they're surrounding look like they're a very good support for you in raising your children, you should do it. If you don't think that is the case, don't do it. Don't worry about what anybody says. You're not here to please everybody. You're here to answer Allah's charge to you. Save yourself and your family from hellfire. Don't worry about what anyone else. No one else is going to. You're not going to answer to anybody. You're going to answer to Allah. And I've been given the signal. Part 2 next time.
One brief question.
Okay.
We were told that you're going to talk about Abraham and Ayah 22.
Yes.
What was advertised
What happened?
about Ibrahim Surah 22. So if you can explain
The
that.
subject was excellent.
So, Jazakumullah khair. Yeah, I was actually just thinking that when I sat here. So usually what happens is
Brief.
Islamically, when I go to a community and I scope the community out and I see that there are a lot of young people here, then what I try to do is cater my talk to address the community that has a lot of young people. Because I know that, you know what, this community might need to hear something about, you understand what I'm trying to say? So yes, I do apologize, number one. My original topic was actually a continuation of the khutbah today in a different section where Shaitan himself was actually going to address, you know how in the khutbah I said that the mu'mins address the munafiqs? Shaitan himself was going to address the people on the Day of Judgment. So that's what I was going to speak on. And this is basically a khutbah of Shaitan on the Day of Judgment. And a very eloquent one at that. So that's what I was going to speak on. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always sent the prophets to deal with whatever issues that the communities were facing and stuff like that. So whenever I go somewhere and give a talk, I try to make sure I cater to that. So I apologize to you. We can talk briefly, inshallah, after Isha about Surah Ibrahim, ayah number 22. It's the ayah that starts with وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانُ لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ. It's on the 4th page. It takes up about half of the page. So you can look at it yourself. It's a very beautiful, very profound. If you have any questions about it, I'm here till tomorrow morning. I took a little nap, so I'm good to go. If you guys want to, we could have like a short qiyam here. I really don't mind at all. I really don't mind. I feel a lot of love in this community, and it's making, I kind of feed off of people. So I'm ready to go if you guys are. Jazakumullah khair.
Talk about it.
Jazakumullah khair. But